Hi friends, welcome back to On Location. Currently we're here in Terrace, British Columbia, and it is my honor and pleasure as I wrap up a week of filming here in Terrace to sit down with a legend. I am beyond honored to be joined by Dempsey Bob, one of the most influential Indigenous artists of our time, a master carver of Tahltan-Tlingit heritage. Dempsey's visionary work has not only revived traditional formline design, but also made waves around the world as a teacher, cultural guardian, and internationally recognized artist. His art embodies deep cultural knowledge, and we're just so honored to sit down with him. Dempsey, what a pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me in your space.
Thank you. Yeah, I started carving about 1969, and I'm Tahltan-Tlingit, and I'm from the Wolf Clan. And I'm a teacher and a carver and traditional singer, dancer. Mostly I've been just doing my own art though, you know, trying to develop my own style and bring back the art. And I did a lot of teaching in Alaska, Yukon, and back Telegraph Creek, my hometown. I was born there in 1949. And art is really important because art is what makes us human. Art is what makes us civilized. And art, it's like the artists were like the conscience of societies. And, you know, like, it's important because our art gives us our identity as who we are, as wolves, as eagles, as Tahltans, as Tlingits, as Haidas, as Tsimshian, Nishkas, Gitsan. That's who we are through our art and our culture.
Thank you for sharing that. I would love to just go back in time and to hear how you first got started. Were you earlier on inclined to draw? Like, how did you know this was your calling?
I started carving about 1969, and I was really lucky. I found what I wanted to do. I found my passion was carving. But how I got started was when I was a kid in the canneries in Port Edward, Nelson Brothers Fisheries. We carved our own toys. We didn't have any money. So what we did was we carved our toys. We looked in the wish book in the Simpson Sears catalog, and we'd find a gun or something in there. We'd draw it on wood and carve it. Just with little pocket knives. That's all we had. And when I was growing up, there was no television, there was no internet, there was nothing. And I was lucky, I was ready to learn, and I had a good attitude about learning and willing to work with Frida. And also...
How did you connect with Frida?
Well, two of my friends were going to her class in Prince Rupert at the Friendship House there. And they told me about her, and I had no tools, so I couldn't go because I had no tools. And anyways, I borrowed, my brother had a few carving tools, so I borrowed his tools and I went carving with Frida. And I just never stopped. And what I found out now is I think about it like, what if I didn't meet Frida? You know, you think about what would you have done with your life and your time, you know? And now I'm so grateful that I met her and I was there. Because I was working in the canneries and working on the pipeline and doing all kinds of stuff. But when I started carving with Frida, I knew this is what I wanted to do. Because I found that good feeling of working with wood and tools, carving tools, again. And so I knew this is what I want to do. And I was lucky because a lot of people, you don't find their passion, what they really want to do. And I was lucky I found it, and I found it when I was young. Well, younger, 69, I started with Frida. But Frida was a great teacher, that's what I realize now. And a great individual, like great person, human being. Because she was the only one that was willing to teach us and work with us. Because there was other carvers, but they weren't teaching, nobody was teaching. Because teaching is an art form too. And she was a great teacher, and she gave us, the tools and the resources and where to find our art, our old art. Because most of our art is gone. It's all over the world. It's not very much that's here. So, and we had no money to go over there or go anywhere or even get tools. So we had to make our own tools. Frida taught us how to make them. And I realize now that she knew how important our culture was. Because, like people don't realize it, but, when I was born, 1948, we weren't allowed to carve. They outlawed our culture. And that's how we almost lost the art. And Frida was a big part of the revival of the art, like bringing the art back. And I am too, and because we did a lot of teaching. And it was the teachers that brought it back. Teachers like Frida.
You were entrenched and surrounded by all of this. And I'm sure when you're working, when you're carving and, whether it's singing and whatnot, you're channeling those stories, that energy of the spirits of your ancestors. Walk me through, the first time you perhaps started carving. What was that experience like for you, and how you perhaps felt it in your body? Like you touched on it a bit earlier. You knew with Frida that this is something you wanted to do. What was that knowing like? And I'm sure back in the day when someone perhaps could not imagine being a carver and making a living doing this.
Well, when I started, I didn't say I was going to be an artist or a carver, but, I just loved doing it, and working at it, and then, like I said, I had that good feeling. And I never thought about it as trying to be a great artist or anything, because, that's so intimidating. Plus, you have to do your best. Because, like when I started, I had a bit of talent, but I wasn't the best painter, and I wasn't the best drawer, and I wasn't the best carver. But I had the most passion to do it and do it well. And I got that from my family, from my dad, from my mom, from my grandparents. That, to do it well. And also the passion too, and the discipline. Because to be a good artist or a great artist, you can't just have talent. You got to have your life together. Plus you got to have your own passion. You got to have your own knowledge. You got to learn. Because what I found out, it's continuous learning. Like, I'm still learning. Because, if you're honest, the more you learn, the more you find out you don't know. Art is endless. It just gets bigger, further, and higher, further. That's what happens. And I was lucky that I was there and I was ready, and I met the right people at the right time, so it was critical, yeah.
You were meant to be the Dempsey Bob. You began carving at a time when Indigenous art wasn't widely recognized or respected. What gave you the strength to keep going? Were there moments early on when you felt discouraged perhaps, or moments that confirmed that you were on the right path?
Well, you know, like I wanted to quit a lot of times, you know, because I couldn't get anywhere because, you know, when I started, there was no market. There was no market for our art, and we had to build the market. And now it's a big market, but we had to build it. But you know what we did, you know, like what I did, you know, I realized, you know, like I just wanted to survive as an artist. And it took a lot of courage and a lot of hard work and a lot of struggle to get any recognition. But you know, what I did was I decided I have to be successful because otherwise you can't do it. You can't survive. You can't afford a car because, you know, if you got a family, you got to feed those kids. You know what I mean? So you got to do it, and that's what I did. But I was a hard worker. My father was a hard worker. My mother was a hard worker. My grandfather. We all worked. Those days when you don't work, you don't eat. So that's...
You had the work ethic.
The work ethic, yeah.
Yeah, and it also
and
sounds...
the discipline too. You know what I mean, to do it, yeah.
You've been a key figure in the resurgence of Northwest Coast art. What did that revival look like and feel like when you were first starting out, and what did you feel was at stake, and how have you seen it grow?
Well, you know, we you know, people didn't realize this, but, you know, we weren't in galleries. We weren't allowed. We weren't in museums. We weren't in anywhere. We were only in Turnbull Gift Shop in Prince Rupert. But, you know, with my career, my pieces have gone from Turnbull Gift Shop to the National Gallery of Canada. So that's a long ways from here. You know what I mean? From that time, right? And, you know, like say our Northwest Coast art is different because our art comes from this land, from this mountain, from that river, from the ocean in the north, from our forests. Didn't come from Europe. So they don't know where to put us. And it's great art. You know, it's great art, great sculpture. But it's not from European art history and theory, so they don't know where to put us. You know what I mean? But you look at what modern art did too. They try to steal some of our ideas. You know, like when you look at Northwest Coast, we were already into abstraction. And all great art eventually goes into abstraction. And we're already there, our ancestors, and with great pieces. And that's what European art was trying to steal from us. They were trying to steal that power, the spiritual power. But they didn't realize you can't steal spirituality. It's impossible, right? So that's what happened. But people, I said they stole it because they didn't give our ancestors credit. You know what I mean? For the art, for the great art. It wasn't just our art, it was African art too. They took from them and Polynesian art, you know. Yeah.
To outsiders, formline might seem just like a style, but for you it's a sacred language. Can you share more about that? Yeah,
our formline, it's really unique to this area. And it's very, very old. And it's very sophisticated too. Like once you really understand it, you have to be able to draw that and see it. Because if you understand formline, you could carve anything. Because the formline and the drawings is the basis of art. Because what it does, it teaches you proportion, teaches you design, teaches you space, teaches you negative and positive space. Like say like a silver bracelet, if you understand our design, we are just carving the negative space to create the positive design. That's how sophisticated our art was. And then you could just carve it without paint. But there's another style that's painted and carved. And then there's a completely different painted style that's fully developed. So it's very, very sophisticated how they did it, you know, how it was formed. And you have to understand that. And that's what Frida taught us, you know. And that's what she made stress, that we, you know, like when I started, I didn't want to draw. I just wanted to carve because I love carving. I just wanted to carve. But Frida was very tricky. She sends me to Alaska to teach our people up there, the Tlingit. She said, they're way behind us. You got to go up there and help your people. So I went up there and I was teaching. And I was teaching these little kids. And after I drew about 10,000 ovoids and U shapes and S shapes, and then I figured it out. That's why she sent me. But I learned to draw. You know, you got to get your 10,000 hours. And she knew that, you know.
She knew how to work with you.
This little girl, you know, she could really draw fish. Because the kids, you know what Picasso meant when he said that you have to be able to draw like a child. A child has wonder and innocence and just that freedom, you know what I mean? Because later on it leaves you, or it leaves the children, right? That's what he meant. That's what artists have to keep, or try to keep that, yeah. But this little girl, she was only about 8 years old, and she could draw salmon, live ones, you know, and I learned how to draw salmon from that little girl. Because I learned from my students. That's how I did my homework. And see, what it is for an artist, okay, you gotta do your homework. What means you gotta learn how to draw, you gotta learn about art, you gotta learn your history, you gotta learn sharpening, you gotta learn design, you gotta learn drawing, you gotta learn painting, you gotta learn about the wood, you gotta know how to make the tools. It's endless. And anyways, that's what happens, like, to most people, is you can't mature as a true artist if you didn't do your homework.
You've said before that carving is really spiritual. Can you tell us a bit more about how it connects to ceremony, to ancestors, to land?
Well, if you understand the art, like what my grandmother said, that who we are, it's in our bracelets. It's in our masks. It's in our blankets. And it's like, say, like, I'm a wolf. And wolves are supposed to be strong, smart, proud, free. And we're very proud of our ancestors and where we come from. And how we get our crest is my mother's a wolf. My grandmother's a wolf. So I get my names, my stories, my songs from my grandmother and my mother. My father's a raven. We don't marry the same crest. So we have different protocols and laws. That's one of our sacred laws. And people think we're just ravens and eagles. No, we had traditional territories. We come from a wolf territory with wolf stories, names, the mountains and lakes and rivers. And from our area, the grizzly bear was one of the main crests of that area, and the wolf. And I realize now that, you know, like, culture is what you live. And culture is like the glue of societies. And culture is important because it gives you identity, plus gives you meaning. Plus, you know, like when I get up in the morning, I'm happy. I'm going to work. I'm doing something. And it's, you know, like if you understand our art in the land, it's spiritual. You can't separate the land from the art from the people. That's what the culture is. It's the land. And you know, like what we say, we have a saying that if you forget your land, your spirit gets lost. And that's happened to a lot of people. And that's why we're still close to the land. And, you know, like our traditional way is we don't really talk about the spiritual, but it's there. And it's part of the art, you know. Like we don't teach it or anything, but if they want to learn, they got to find out themselves. That's what we believe.
Tell me about Frida Deasing School, where it sounds like you're very fond of her. You learned a lot from her. She's inspired you and shaped your career as an artist. And now you're hoping to do the same with the school. What has that been like, knowing that you've impacted so many lives?
Well, you know, I feel really good about that, you know, because we're seeing results now, you know, good results from the artists, from the students. And that's all that matters, you know what I mean? Because they'll teach their children, they'll teach other people, and the good art will continue. Because, you know, like you have to know the basics. You have to know our traditional form lines, proper way of doing it. And you have to give them a good foundation in art, in drawing, you know, and history too. You know, like say, like the best thing I ever done with my work was I stayed here because I'm still part of our culture and our people are here in the land, close to the land. I could go see the eagles, I could go fishing, I could go see the ravens, you know. Can't do that in a big city. Anyways, you know, like what's important is that we gave it back to our people. You know, I didn't keep it for myself. And that's important because those kids, they'll bring it, they'll take it further. Because all great art, it has to evolve, and all great artists are contemporary to their own time and place. Because wherever you live affects the way you think, the way you see, the way you are.
Looking back, what would you say have been some of the proudest moments, and what continues to drive you forward as an artist even now?
Well, you know, like it's different, because like I got these awards, you know, like, you know what I mean? Like I got my honorary doctorates, and I got
Order of Canada.
You know, the Order of Canada. I got the Officer of the Order of Canada, and then I just got the Governor General's Award for Visual Arts for Canada. And I thought about my mom. And my grandpa, Grandma Eva. Grandma Helen. They were the only ones who supported me in the beginning. And they believed in me. And Frida, I think of them. Because, you know, like when I was in Catholic school in Prince George, they gave me C- in art because I didn't draw like the teacher wanted me to draw. So she failed me. But you know what? She pissed me off so bad I got good. I was determined to get good.
I heard that in your doctorate speech at UBC, and I was like, I think we need people who doubt us. We need people, and I think it perhaps brings out that rebellious spirit, or it's something in. When I was in school, it was the same for me. Yeah,
because you know what I did was I used it in a positive way though for myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I think about it now, you know, like maybe that's why I stuck to it. You know what I mean? Like you don't know, right?
Yeah.
But that was part of it, you know. But Frida was part of it too, because, you know, she was such a great person, and, you know, and she believed in us. And
I'm so
she
curious.
was the only one, because, Frida was unique because she was the first female artist to do a totem pole. And traditionally in the Northwest Coast, okay, this is our tradition. Women didn't carve. They made blankets, they made baskets, they never carved. They didn't even come around the carvers when we're carving in here. Women would never come in here. But Frida, and some people, they didn't want to learn from her because she was female, you know. And we didn't care because that's the only teacher we had. She was our school, you know, she was our whole school. But she was a great teacher. That's what I realize now, you know. Because some people know stuff, but they can't teach. And she was willing to teach. And what she did too was she shared everything she knew. Some teachers don't do that. You know what I mean? They'll share some things, but they don't share what they really know. But Frida did.
What do you see in the younger generation of Indigenous artists? Because you work with them, you're mentoring them. What gives you hope for the future? Well, you know, like what I realized with, you know, some of them, you know, what gives us hope is we made good people too. And that's important. Because, you know, like our ancestors were very spiritual and good people. And that's what's important. Because that's what culture is. Culture is whatever you do, whatever you live, that's your culture. You know, if you drink every day, that's your culture, you know, that's your culture, really. Yeah, so, you know, what we found too is, you know, like a lot of them, it changes their life because our art is very powerful and our culture is powerful and this land is powerful too. You know, like my friend from New Zealand, I work with the Maoris from New Zealand. My friend said, he flew all the way here to come and see me. And I said, you got to come see our land. I said, you don't know us. If you don't see our land where we live, you don't know us. He said, okay, I'm coming. He knew. And then as soon as he landed, he phones me up. He said, I know why you live here. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, when I was looking out the mountains, he said, coming out on the plane, he said, I seen bears in the rocks like this looking up at me. He said, yeah, that's why you live here. So I took him down to that mountain down there. It's called Hole in the Wall. There's faces on that. It's like when it's wet, when there's snow on there, you know, it's up there, that's snow on it. And you can see faces on there. Yeah. And you know what he saw? Maori faces. He saw their own faces because you actually see what you know. If you don't know it, you don't see it. That's the truth of life. That's what artists, most people are blind. Artists we train ourselves. And that's what the drawing does. Trains you to see. Yeah. Yeah. Most people are blind. They look, but they don't see. Then they don't feel it. How could you feel it if you can't see it, right? Because you only see what you really know. That's, anyways. He found a Maori dog on that wall because they had these little war dogs. They use them in the war. And he went home and he painted it. Painted it, yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah. Let's take a look at your book, this Dempsey Bob in his own voice. That's a beautiful book. This came out last year? It came out with my show, yeah. Okay. I had a retrospective of my show. It sounds like when you're talking, when I'm speaking to you, Dempsey, that you think of the future quite a bit. You think of future generations, art, your work, what things are going to be like when you're not going to be around. It sounds like you're very aware of that and mindful of using your time, from what I'm hearing. Yeah, because, you know, like I wanna do it, but I wanna live too and continue it. You know, and that's all that matters, you know, because in the future, our students, the good ones, are gonna be our future. And to get good, you gotta be good people too. You know, and you gotta be committed. You know, like, because it's dedication that's costly.
talent is cheap. There's lots of talent. But you got to have your life together. You got to have your discipline. You got to have your passion, your own passion, and you got to find it. And it's got to be real. Otherwise, it won't be real art. It's got to be real. And it's got to be from yourself. And that's what I know about art, and that's what I know about culture. And that's, you know, like Frida and I, we used to talk about our culture and about our history, about where we came from, who we are, all these things. And I was lucky because she knew so much about art. She had a library of books and her own library, and, you know, she read all the time. And yeah, and I miss that because I have nobody to talk to. Oh, I talk to Stan. But there's nobody else that knows what I know now, or because I studied it well. Not only that, I did it through carving, you know, learning. Like we done our homework, like Stan and them. They done over 100 totem poles. We know sculpture. There's very few people that done over 100 totem poles. Yeah. I only done about 20, 25 or something. I don't even know, something like that. But I could carve poles too. But I know sculpture, I studied it. But, you know, like a true artist, eventually, like you could learn so much, you could do so much, but you got to go your own way. And what I think about now is like, I've got to do what I know and what I can do now, because what happens is you don't really know how long you got, right? You know what I mean? Yeah, so you got to do it, and that's what I've been doing it. Because, you know, like, to be a good, it takes a lot of courage, lots of struggle, lots of hard work. But it's a struggle that makes the art. It's the struggle.
It's carving out the artist. We need that struggle, that pressure, like the diamond that brings out, I think, a lot of it's the hard times that make the, you know, the work when you have the book and all the awards and the recognition, but behind that are the stories.